Sorry about that. Technical difficulties.
It's okay.
But here we are. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for your patience. So this is our free webinar, How to Work with the Season of Fall. And it looks like we have a few people tuning in live and some others who are going to watch on video later, and that's great. So we will be emailing a copy of this to everybody. So if you need to step away for a minute, make yourself a cup of tea, make yourself comfortable, do whatever you need to do. We will also be emailing a copy so you can watch it later or go back and review it. And if possible, we are going to be covering some questions for explanation. So if you're interested in having a pen and paper on hand, feel free to take notes, and we'll have some questions for you to explore this season. So first, we'll introduce ourselves. We are both named Megan, which is a little confusing, but we'll make sure you know who's who. So I'm Megan Miller, and this is Megan Leatherman, and I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself, Megan. And I was hoping that you could share, and I will do the same, some thoughts about what you love most about the season of fall, and maybe also some of the challenges that you experience in fall.
Okay. Well, yeah, I know many of you, but some of you will be new. And hi, I'm Megan Leatherman. I founded A Wild New Work, which is kind of the home base for A Wild New School. Hi, Paula. And yeah, we started A Wild New School. It's actually sort of been in the works for like a year and a half, but we ran our first course this summer. And I loved working with the summer season, but it has always been a more difficult time for me, and the fall is my favorite. So I love the crispness of the fall, the colors. I like that there's rain, but it's not overwhelming. And I just love it just feels very fresh after summer to me. It feels like the new year, the true new year to me. So I'm really excited to have each of you here and to share more about this awesome season that we're in, or almost in.
That's great. And anything that you experience as particularly challenging or dynamics of fall that require a little bit more effort for you?
Mm-hmm. I think the rockiest part of the fall is when we start approaching the winter holidays. So winter doesn't start, officially until the solstice on December 21st, but in the US, we've got, Thanksgiving, and then it's like a full-on ramp up to Christmas. And that can feel overwhelming, and like it's like a distraction from the sort of wealth and abundance that is available in the autumn. And I find that can be really depleting for a lot of people because it often includes like travel and family stuff. And so this year I'm going to try to be more mindful of how to kind of continue the good work of the fall and the harvest and the kind of preparation for winter in the midst of, the holiday insanity that we create here. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And I wanted to include that because for as many of the things that we love about the seasons and how wonderful they are, that they do present some challenges, and some of it is just adjusting to a new season. So I know I've shared this before, but I love summer. Summer's probably my favorite. But as far as moving into fall, I think of just kind of the coziness of fall. I do like that shift where we go a little bit more internal, and it sort of allows us to spend more time inside doing activities, cooking, crafting, just sort of being quiet and spending more time inside. I like changing to fall clothes, the sweaters and the boots, and just kind of everything that's cozy about it. But it is a challenge. I mean, we're already starting to get lots of rain. The weather has changed, and I feel really tired in the fall with the weather. It's harder to feel energized with the rain and the darkness. And so there is a lot of, for me, of learning how to work with that and try to, figuring out how to use my energy and like how to stay connected and engaged and active during this season can be a challenge for me. So, and those are some of the things that we're going to talk about, just how to work with the energy of fall and really kind of maximize the potential of fall. Yeah, well, we'll move into the webinar now for the sake of time. So Megan, if you want to start with the first section that we're going to be covering, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Yeah. So I want to just give a little bit of context about kind of where we're headed and what we mean when we say autumn. Everyone knows already what that means in your experience, but we're really talking about the sort of seasonal wheel of the year. So we have 4 major kind of gateways or thresholds throughout the year. We have the winter solstice in December, which is the darkest day of the year when the sunlight begins to come back. We have the spring equinox, which is when the night and day are equal. We have equal amounts of light. We have the summer solstice, which is the brightest day of the year, the longest day of the year. And then what we're approaching now is the autumnal equinox, which is when, again, the night and day are balanced, but we're kind of transitioning into the darkest time of the year. So the days will get shorter and shorter until the winter solstice. And so this season spans September, October, November into December. We're talking about harvest, and then what you see on the screen, Samhain, is the Celtic name for what many of us know as Halloween now. It's sort of, sometimes it gets called like the Witch's New Year. It's a festival of kind of the beginning of the end of the year, and then in the winter solstice we celebrate the return of the light. So it's sort of this kind of rebirth period. So I want to start by talking about the work of fall, and I think the kind of invitations of this season. It's always interesting to us and foundational to our work to look at what nature is doing at this time. So we see that the growing season is coming to a close. We still have, squash and pumpkin and corn that are growing, and those are the kind of starchy vegetables that will have sustained many of our ancestors through the winter and that can sustain us through the winter. But generally, there aren't flowers blooming. There may be a few dahlias left, a few things, but generally things are slowing down and ending their time and dying. Of course, we see that on the leaves on the trees that are falling and that will turn color. So things are ending and coming to a close. There's death everywhere in this season, which isn't a bad thing or scary. It's a necessary part of the cycle. I think for us, we can think about assessing our crops. So if we look at this time as both harvest, but also the end of the growing season, we get to use our tools of discernment and look at, what did well this year and what didn't do well. What needs more time before I harvest it and what's really just ready to let go. What do I want to try or make more room for next spring, the next growing cycle? We also are thinking a lot about transition, right? This is an incredible season of change, of death and new life, and preparing for the quiet of winter and the kind of integration that season requires. So it's a really important kind of in-between season. Fall and spring are both these kind of liminal periods where we get to work with themes of transition and change and learn how to do that in a graceful way. Some of the questions that we will be exploring through our course, but also that we encourage you to explore on your own, are what's working in your life and what's not working at this time. If you looked at your life as sort of a field that's been growing and giving you different crops throughout the year, what did really well this year and what did not thrive? What might you want to try in the next growing cycle? And how do you want to kind of take care of your field this fall and winter so that it can be as fruitful as possible for you next spring when our energy sort of comes back and we think about new life and sprouting new crops? What transitions are you undergoing? So what is ready to die or be let go of, and what is going to come through in exchange for that? We all always go through transitions, whether it's career changes or relationship changes or moving. And the fall really teaches us how to do that gracefully and to let the leaves on our trees change color and just fall away really easily. And we don't want to cling on to the things that are just ready to go. So how can we do that? And then how can you take care of yourself this season as that's happening, right? So the trees, as they're dropping their leaves, they are stocking up and storing their sugars and carbohydrates to last them through the winter. So how can you take care of yourself so well this season that when it's really dark and really cold and really rainy and you're inside a lot and things are generally less active, how can you be in a really wonderful fit state for that? And fall helps us prepare for that. So those are some of the things I wanted to share. I mean, if I think about how I would do this, if I weren't working with this course that we'll be doing, I would think about how to make time for assessment and reflection, whether that's daily or if you want to do kind of a big fall assessment for yourself. I would look at my relationships to death and rebirth and change and how I feel about that and how I feel about that in my own life. And then I would be really conscious this season of looking at what wants to be composted and what really just wants to be let go. So Megan will talk more about how to kind of support yourself in that through the sensory experience of fall and kind of being mindful of how to support your body. I would say this is very practical. One thing that I know is challenging for people in this season and in the winter is this sort of like depression or fatigue that can come over because the days are so much shorter, and that's normal. I mean, our bodies know that the days are shorter and we need more rest, and the darkness allows that, but I know people have a tendency to stay indoors more because it's rainy or cold, and I would encourage all of us to continue any outdoor practices that we have and to really continue to connect with nature in our bodies, even if the elements are wet or cold, but to really get outdoors and breathe in all the good chemicals from the trees and just take care of ourselves in that way. I think in the fall we have a tendency to kind of be indoors more, which isn't a problem at all, but it could, snowball into just seasonal depression or, fatigue. So support yourself in that way too. Megan, anything you want to add about the work of fall?
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about the themes of harvesting and releasing, which is part of what we see in nature and what's happening with agriculture and all of that. So I think that's an interesting way to think about it, of like, what am I harvesting? What do I want to keep? And what am I ready to let go of? What's ready to be released?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Megan.
Yeah, so the next section is the sensory experience of fall. One of the things that we talk about a lot in our course, we incorporate a lot of mindfulness practices, and there's a lot of definitions for mindfulness. I've heard a lot that make sense and resonate for me. I think about presence and awareness, like being present in your current experience, not in the past or in the future, but being present with what's right in front of you, and aware of some part of your present moment experience. So mindfulness can really be a lot of different things. It could be being aware of your thoughts and how your thoughts affect your mood. It could be being aware of your body and what your body is telling you about what you're needing. It could be an awareness of the world around you, what's happening right now in this moment, in my environment, because we do tend to get stuck in our heads and thoughts about the past and the future. And so mindfulness is really a way of coming into the present moment. And this is something we talk about across the seasons. There's nothing specific to fall that requires or invites us for more mindfulness, but I think it's a cool way to experience the seasons, of really being mindful, using the senses to connect to what is happening in the season of fall and what do we notice. And so the senses are a really simple way to practice mindfulness. What do I see? What do I hear? What do I smell? What do I taste? What do I touch? And touch also includes the world coming into contact with our body. So touch would include not just like, how does this blanket feel, but how does the air feel against my skin? What does the rain feel like? The crispness of the air, the feel of our feet on the ground. So it's our body coming into contact with the world around us. So I made a list, just kind of for fun, to think about what are some of the sensory experiences of fall. And I'd like to hear from you, Megan. And this is obviously just sort of a short list. The ask here, the invitation here is just for you to be mindful and aware of what you're noticing as the seasons are changing. But cite some of the things that we see, at least in the Pacific Northwest. We have increased rain, darker skies, shorter days, increased darkness, the changing color of the leaves falling from the ground, different plants that are growing and thriving while others are starting to die off. So those are some of the things that we see in the season of fall. Sound, again, rain, thunder. We've been having a lot of thunderstorms here, which is unusual for the Pacific Northwest, but something that I've noticed in the last couple weeks as we're approaching fall. It could be the sound of crunching leaves. It could be the sound of bird calls that are unique during this time of year that you notice. If you really tune in, you might start to notice that there's different animal noises this time of year. As far as smell, it could be the smell of the rain, the freshness of the rain, the smell of the crisp air. It could be seasonal scents, pumpkin spice or apple spice, clove, lots of sort of like aromatic and like spiced smells that I notice this time of year. It could be the smell of seasonal foods that you're preparing, just recognizing that the foods are different this time of year, which leads us into taste. And we will talk about seasonal foods a little bit later, but just noticing the different tastes and the different foods that are available in the season of fall. And then, like I said, with the sensory experience of touch, it could be the feel of warmer clothes, cozy blankets, the world coming into contact with your body. How does it feel? The cooler air. How does the rain feel on my skin? And so this is, like I said, really just an invitation. We're inviting you to pay attention and just to notice what you see, especially going from summer into fall. What do you notice that's different? And so some of the questions to explore, if you want to throw up the questions there, throw down the questions. So we're inviting you to explore, what do you notice in your surroundings as the seasons are changing? And again, what do I see? What do I hear? What do I smell? What do I taste? What do I touch? And then what sensory experiences are a source of comfort to you in the fall? So not just what do you notice, but really inviting yourself to cultivate those experiences for yourself. Are there certain smells that are really comforting to you, or certain types of feels or certain sounds that are comforting to you, and finding ways of really incorporating that into your life this fall, of like inviting in the things that are a source of comfort for you. Do you have anything to add on that, Megan, or any sensory experiences that come to mind for you regarding fall, or things that are a source of comfort for you in fall?
No, I mean, I think getting outdoors this time of year is a natural way to invite all of your senses into the season. I guess I'm wondering for you, Megan, like, what would you recommend? How do you remember to be mindful of, like, what would you recommend in terms of remembering to like get in your body and appreciate, because we're all so busy and we're just going through, and then next thing we know, it's
Right.
Christmas and the New Year. So how do you remember or remind
Right.
yourself to embrace the season through your senses, which is such a powerful way of taking care of yourself?
Yeah. That's a great question. And that's, I don't know that I have any good ideas. I mean, I think it's having reminders. You could post reminders different places. But I think it's taking advantage of those opportunities. So I think a good one is, like you said, getting anytime that you're outside, but it could be the walk from your car to your office. I have a 10-minute walk and I'm outside, of taking advantage of those opportunities. And like you said, particularly being outside, to say, I'm going to give myself 10 minutes to just explore what I'm seeing, what I'm experiencing, what I'm feeling in the world around me. And the mindfulness practice, it's not that it's going to be perfect or that you're not going to think about other things, but the practice is, if you're having an overwhelming day, you might find yourself thinking about work or stress or things in your life that are feeling overwhelming. And the practice is you just keep coming back to the senses. So you notice that your mind wanders and you bring it back and you say, just for right now on this walk for these 10 minutes, I'm just going to pay attention to what I'm experiencing in the world around me. And you'll notice that your mind wanders again and you bring it back. Nope, just for this this 10-minute walk. I'm just going to experience the world around me. I think the reminders, if that's something that you're having trouble doing or having reminders, you could set a reminder on your phone. You could put it on your lock screen. You could do alarms. You could have notes posted. If that's more of the issue of like reminding yourself, there's ways that you can kind of post reminders. You could get into a practice where every morning you give yourself 10 minutes to practice mindfulness and just incorporate it into your routine. But it's really something that you can do. You can do it for 60 seconds. If you have 60 seconds and you're outside, it's really something that you can do anywhere for any amount of time as a practice this fall.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. That's helpful.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk next about learning from the Zodiac calendar, which is, if you're not familiar with astrology, that's fine. This will be a very quick, high-level overview. And this is just another way that we look at the season and learn from the season. So we always start by looking at what nature is doing. And because we're both in the Pacific Northwest, that's sort of the bioregion or the huge ecosystem that we look at. But the Zodiac is global, and there's other forms of astrology, but there are 12 zodiac signs, and each of them, there's 3 per season essentially, and that's sort of how we as individuals work with the season, but then also bring that to our students in the course. So I just want to share with you what's going to be happening this fall and how you can kind of embrace the energy of each section of the season. So fall begins with the sign of Libra, which is an air sign. And Libra sort of gets pinned as this sign that's just about like beauty and balance and harmony, and it's all nice and, fluffy. But really what we're doing at that period in the season is assessing with, objectivity as much as we can. And as adults, we are assessing how our crops did this season. And we have to get really real with ourselves about what did well and what didn't, and how did we get in our own ways, and what got sabotaged through our fear or our pride or our ego, and what did really well, where did we really grow. So it's about creating harmony and balance, that's true, but that work can be excruciating because balance and harmony requires honesty and truth. So in the first part of this season, we're really making clear assessments and looking at what's really going on so that we can work with what's going on and take responsibility for it. After that, we move into Scorpio, which is a water sign and is, I think, an invitation into deep healing, healing the things that we feel ashamed about. So if we know that part of our harvest did really poorly this year and we feel shame about that, then the next season or the next invitation is to really look at that shame and decide what we want to do with it, and look at the stories that we're telling ourselves that make us feel that shame, and then decide how we want to relate to those stories. So it's a season of really going inward and kind of into the depths of ourselves to do the healing that's going to serve us for the rest of the year. And then we move into Sagittarius, which is a fire sign that carries us into winter, and it's sort of the rebirth that happens after you go down really deep and kind of into the underworld, and you move things about and you decide what needs to go and what needs to stay, and then you can come out sort of reborn and with greater energy to mobilize and to make the changes that you want. And so we'll be talking about each of these, throughout the season as we go. And I think if we came up with a question for each of them, you could start by looking in Libra season at what you need in order to feel balanced, true balance, not this sort of kitschy work-life balance thing, but in your life, like what needs more attention, what needs less of your attention, what is most deserving of your energy at this time, and what is the new kind of balance that you need this season. In Scorpio season, we're looking at where we're in need of healing. And again, what do we want to do with any shame that gets triggered by our harvest and our assessment and sort of how we did this year. And then in Sagittarius, how do you want to open your horizons? And from a place of healing and well-being, how do you want to grow? into at the end of fall and then into the winter, which starts with Capricorn season, which is all about building upon that energy. So those are some of the big high level themes that we're looking at and that we encourage you to look at as you go. Megan, anything you want to add or that I missed?
No, I think that was great. This is one of the things that's been really fun about this course is doing it in real time in alignment with the seasons. So we get to talk about the signs of the zodiac as they're happening. And another thing that we're really going to highlight in the fall course is moon cycles. So we'll be talking about what the moon is doing in real time so you can connect with, the full moon energy, the new moon energy. So that's been one of the things that I think has been really fun, was really fun in our summer course, of being able to talk about these things as they're happening. And we can see on the screen, our course is going to cover all three of the zodiac signs. We'll just barely get into Sagittarius, but it will span over all three signs, so we have time to talk about them as they're happening.
Yeah. All right, you want to talk about seasonal living?
Yeah. So this is a new component to our course for fall. This isn't something it's something we talked about, but we didn't really highlight in summer. And really, I think this is just this to me just feels like sort of the fun, easy part of the course of thinking about how to live in accordance with the seasons. We're going to talk a little bit about fall crops and foods. So eating the foods that are available in the fall, finding activities that are fall specific, and making that transition. I talked about for me, transitioning from summer is really hard. There's a sense of loss about the sun and the heat and all the activities that I enjoy in the summer. And so moving into fall, we're going to be talking about what types of activities you can do and how to really highlight the energy and work with the energy of fall. So here in the Pacific Northwest, I made a list, and I will say we're not expert gardeners. This is something that we're kind of exploring and learning about ourselves. But based on my own garden, a little bit of research I did, conversations with other gardeners, I made a list of some, and this is not comprehensive, but some of the crops that are specific to fall that we can start thinking about and getting excited about all these seasonal foods. So in this area, we have apples, green beans, cucumbers, hazelnuts are really popular in Oregon, honey, cabbage, arugula, kale, lettuce, onion, potatoes, beets, carrots, turnips, leeks, pumpkins, squash, summer and winter squash, that's a big one for fall, dry beans, melons, Brussels sprouts, and cauliflower. And like I said, this is not an exhaustive list. These are just some of the crops that come up this time of year that we're looking forward to. Also, it's really cool to see across, even across the state of Oregon, how different the crops can be. So I'm on the Oregon coast, and just south of here in Bandon, cranberries are really popular, and we're entering into cranberry season. I think they just had their festival this month. And I was recently in Southern Oregon, and they're preparing for pear season from now through Christmas. Pears are growing and thriving down there. So these are some of the conversations that we want to have, and we're excited to hear from our students in the course what everybody's noticing, what sort of seasonal crops and foods are available in your area. And again, this is an invitation for mindfulness and just being aware the next time you go to the grocery store, the farmer's market. It's just kind of fun to notice, just to observe what's different, and to think about working with seasonal foods and how to incorporate that into your life. As far as fall activities, and I'd like to hear from Megan as well. Some of these I've done, some of them I haven't, but it was kind of fun to think about, what are the activities of fall? What is it that we're invited to do? How do we really work with the weather and the energy and what's happening? So in our area, some of the outdoor activities that are very popular this time of year. So mushroom hunting is one that I know a lot of people are into. Just make sure you know what you're doing and what you're looking for, because there are also poisonous mushrooms out there. Lots of pumpkin patches, apple tastings, apple pickings, fall hiking and camping. Like Megan said, just because it starts to rain and the weather is getting colder, it doesn't mean that you can't still go outdoors. And so finding ways to engage with outdoor activities. Bird migrations, I've noticed where we live here on the Oregon coast, we've been seeing birds flying overhead, and it's been really interesting just to watch and to see what's happening in nature this time of year. A big one in the Portland area, Megan, I don't know if you've ever been, but the Swifts at Chapman Elementary is a really a cool experience I did a couple years ago, where you can go and watch. And basically, as the birds are migrating for the winter, there's a period of a couple weeks in September where the birds all gather and they go to roost at night inside the elementary school. And you can watch them sort of gather and circle before sunset. And then one of them will dive into the chimney, and there's just sort of this mass of like thousands of birds that dive into the chimney and go to roost at night. So these are just some ideas from us and just some things to kind of think about based on what we're noticing in our area. And again, I think it's an invitation to pay attention to what's happening in nature and what sort of fall activities to really connect with what's happening in the world and to recognize those things that happen seasonally. There's a lot in terms of animal migrations or areas you can go and see the birds or see animals based on what they're doing seasonally. So I'd like to hear from you, Megan. That was just kind of a list that I came up with about outdoor fall activities and how to really reconnect with the energy of fall and what's happening in nature this time of year.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, pumpkin festivals come to mind. Obviously, I grew up in a really conservative Christian house, so we weren't allowed to celebrate Halloween, but we always had a harvest festival at our church, which was basically the same thing. So I think, you mentioned so many wonderful ways of celebrating the season. And it's not only just fun and I think good for self-care, it's also, I think, really important and radical in a few different ways. One is that in our culture and in capitalism, capitalism is invested in you working and being productive at the same rate all year, right? You're supposed to be a productive worker the entire year, no matter what's happening in the natural world. So to reclaim your connection to the rhythms and cycles of nature, to acknowledge that it is darker and your body needs more rest, is a radical act. And the other thing is that we can't, especially nowadays, we can't take for granted that we have seasons, right? I don't know for how long with climate change, how long we'll have regular seasonal changes, right? And that's already shifting in other parts of the world. So we still have time to celebrate the richness and the change that happens in the world, despite the incredible burden that our planet is undergoing. So it's not only about having fun. I think we both feel really strongly that this is, it's good for the environment and it's good for us as part of nature to kind of reclaim these things and to make them an integral part of our lives. And that's what we hope to do through this work. So, Megan, do you want to share some of the questions that you're inviting folks to explore?
Yeah, that's perfect. So here are some of the questions for reflection that we came up with based on seasonal living. So again, we invite you to think about what seasonal foods you'd like to integrate this fall. And regardless of what restrictions or, food allergies you have, I think it's just fun to see the changes in the foods, and it prompts us to think about where our food comes from and what it means to eat seasonally and to eat the crops that are available within our region. So that's something that might be fun for some of you to explore, is incorporating new seasonal foods this fall. What seasonal activities do you want to highlight? And again, recognizing that the activities of fall are different from those of summer, and really considering how to work with the changing energy and to be connected in nature, and just to find things that are fun and engaging for you this season that might be different than what you were doing last season. And then we added this question about what do you remember from your childhood about what you most enjoyed about this season. I think that's a fun way to tap into the energy of all of the seasons, of reflecting on being a kid. Like, what did I do as a kid? What did I enjoy about fall? And I think that often takes us to a place of comfort if we can connect to those comforts that we had as a child. Like, what is now a source of comfort to me in this season? You know, what do I remember that was comforting to me as a child, or that was fun or engaging to me as a child? So these are the questions that we're offering for seasonal living. And that's it for our content. And Megan will close us out for today.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else to add there, or do you want to move into the closing?
No, I think that's great. You covered it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, one, just thank you. I want to take a couple minutes to wrap this up, and just start by saying that there's no right or wrong way to work with the fall. These are just some ideas, and we hope we've given you lots of ideas for how to connect with this season in whatever way you need to, and wherever you are in your life. But if you know that you would like a more concrete container and would like to work with this season in a more intentional way, both emotionally and physically and energetically, then we would love to have you in our course, Autumn Begin Again, which starts on September 30th. And registration is open until Friday the 27th. And you can find out everything on our website, awildnewwork.com, and Megan put the link in the chat box, and we'll include a link in the email as well. But this is an 8-week course that spans all 3 of the Zodiac signs. It's for women specifically, and we'll be talking about how to fully embrace the seasons and on a sensory level, but also to do the emotional and energetic work that this season invites us into, and to really set ourselves up for a really lovely winter and spring. Because I learned from my acupuncturist that in Chinese medicine, they're always looking 2 seasons back. So if we do the work in this season, then we have the chance to really bear good fruit and plant hearty, good seeds in the spring. But if we haven't done this work of really letting go and assessing and taking care, we won't have the energy or the resources to kind of come into full bloom again in the spring and summer. And I think that's true. I've seen that in my life. So this is a really powerful season, whether you know you're going through transition or you just sense that something is changing. We would love to support you. And there's different payment plans based on your budget, different levels of engagement. And yeah, like I said, registration is open till the 27th. And as a little bonus, between now and September 22nd on Sunday, if you enroll, I will happily do a tarot reading for you, which if you don't know anything about the tarot, it's a kind of ancient intuitive tool. And I've done readings for about a year now. And it's essentially a way of getting clarity about a certain aspect of your life. And we don't meet in person. It's done remotely. It takes me about 2 hours, but it's a really beautiful process and has been really helpful to folks. So I normally charge for that, but would be happy to throw that in as sort of a bonus, if you want to enroll in the course between now and Sunday. So if it aligns with you, we would love to have you. If not, maybe we'll see you in the winter or spring or next summer. But we're really excited about the course and excited to explore everything that we've talked about today in a lot more depth. So, yeah. Oh, hi, Kitty. Megan, do you want to add anything?
No, this is Claudia. She jumped in to say hi. Yeah, I would second that. We're really excited about this one. We had a lot of really good feedback from our summer course, and we're incorporating a lot of the same components, but we've also added in the seasonal living component and made a few adjustments for fall. So we're really excited about it. It's both personal growth and learning. There's a heavy component of self-discovery and personal growth and helping to guide you through transitions and whatever's going on in your life. But then, like we talked about today, there's also a mindfulness component, and there's also just kind of some fun learning and helping to get all of us connected to the environment and what's happening around us. And I think I know for me, and we heard from some of our students, that this goes really deep. As you start paying attention to what's happening in nature, you just start seeing more things and noticing like how amazing and how powerful it is. And so I think it's been really cool to see, how far that goes for us, and like how much we can learn about ourselves and discover as we become more connected to nature and observe what's happening in the world around us. So yeah, we're really excited, and we hope to see some of you there.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you everyone so much for giving your attention and time to this. And thank you if you're listening in later. We'll follow up with an email with the recording link a little bit later today, and have a wonderful fall. Okay,
Yeah. All
bye.
right. Thanks. Bye.